The rain poured heavily over the bustling streets of Lagos, drumming against rooftops and flooding the gutters. Inside a small, dusty shop wedged between two tall buildings, Leo sat on an old wooden stool behind his counter, quietly flipping through a tattered copy of Things Fall Apart. The shop smelled of old paper, faint perfume, and damp wood, a scent that comforted him, even as thunder cracked outside. Leo's book haven was no ordinary store. Its wooden shelves leaned slightly, creaking under the weight of rare books. Many of them carried handwritten notes from authors long gone, while others were fragile volumes forgotten by time. Leo loved every single book like a father loved his children. To him, this little shop was his life's work. But lately, life had not been kind to Leo. The landlord had come just 2 days ago, frowning as he handed Leo the rent bill. "If you can't pay by the end of the month, I'll have to lease this place to someone else," he'd said, tapping the paper for emphasis. Leo sighed, glancing at the few customers browsing his shelves. Most were regulars who loved his shop but never bought much. Just a cup of tea and a good read in the corner. Business was slow. He looked at the competition down the street, BookWorld. Victor, the owner of BookWorld, had opened his sleek, glass-walled store last year. It was the opposite of Leo's shop. Bright lights, shiny shelves, and posters of smiling authors signing books. Victor often mocked Leo. "You call that a bookshop? It's more like a museum." He'd sneer whenever he passed by. That evening, as Leo prepared to close, Victor strutted in, holding a flyer. "Old man," Victor smirked, waving the paper. "The city's having a best bookstore competition. But don't bother, you've already lost." Leo didn't respond. He simply closed the door behind Victor, locking out the laughter that followed. But as he stared at the flyer in his hand, his fingers tightened. For the first time, he wondered if there was still hope for his little shop after all. The next morning, Leo stood outside his shop, staring at the competition flyer. The words "Best Bookstore in the City" were bold and bright, promising a cash prize that could save his shop. He folded the paper and placed it in his pocket. "Leo, why you day waste your time?" It was Mama Nkechi, his longtime friend and loyal customer. She had a sharp tongue but a soft heart. She balanced a basket of vegetables on her head as she looked at him. "This competition no be for people like you. No big men like that Victor go win." Leo smiled faintly. "Sometimes, Mama Nkechi, it's not the size of the man but the size of his heart." Mama Nkechi rolled her eyes. "Heart no go pay rent, my brother." She walked off, shaking her head, but her words lingered. Inside, Leo rearranged the books on the front shelf. He knew his shop didn't have the flashiness of BookWorld, but it had something else, a soul. He decided to enter the competition, not to win, but to remind people why his shop mattered. The days passed quickly, and Victor wasn't quiet about his plans. He placed banners all over the street, "Visit BookWorld, the best in Lagos." Every time Leo walked past, Victor would smirk. "You're wasting your time, old man. Nobody cares about old books anymore." But Leo didn't let Victor's words bother him. Instead, he focused on preparing his shop. He dusted shelves, polished the wooden counter, and even placed small handwritten notes next to his rare books, explaining their significance. He also called some of his old customers writers, poets, and teachers, inviting them to visit during the competition. By the evening before the judging, Leo was exhausted. He sat on the stool behind his counter, sipping a cup of tea, when a small boy walked in. He was no older than 10, with torn sandals and a wide-eyed curiosity. "Uncle, do you have any book about space?" the boy asked, clutching a crumpled 50 naira note. Leo smiled. "Wait here." He reached into a dusty shelf and pulled out a simple children's book about astronauts. "Take it, it's free." The boy's face lit up. "Thank you, Uncle," he shouted, running out into the rain. Leo watched him go, feeling a small warmth in his chest. He didn't have money, and his shop wasn't glamorous. But moments like this reminded him why he started Leo's Book Haven in the first place. Tomorrow would decide everything. The day of the competition arrived. The street buzzed with excitement as the judging panel, a mix of literary experts and local leaders, moved from store to store. People crowded the sidewalks, eager to see who would win. Victor was already standing outside BookWorld, dressed in a crisp suit with his signature smirk. "Remember, old man," he called out as the judges approached Leo's shop. "Second place isn't so bad." His laughter echoed as the judges walked into Leo's Book Haven. Inside, the panel was greeted with a sense of nostalgia. The air was warm, the scent of old books and tea mingling in the space. One judge, a grey-haired man with glasses, immediately spotted a signed first edition of A Grain of Wheat by Nguge Washington Fayong. "Where did you find this?" the judge asked, astonished. Leo smiled. "A traveler brought it in years ago. I've kept it ever since." The judges moved through the shop, marveling at the handwritten notes, rare volumes, and the personal touch Leo had added to every corner. A young judge picked up a book and found a handwritten note tucked inside. "May this book inspire you to dream beyond the stars. Your shop feels like a story," one of the judges said, smiling warmly. Meanwhile, across the street, BookWorld was a spectacle of lights and banners. Victor led the judges through the store, showing off his shiny shelves and bestsellers. "We have everything people want," he boasted. "Discounts, events, you name it." But the judges seemed less impressed. They murmured to each other, noting the lack of originality and heart. By the end of the day, the panel gathered to announce the winner. A crowd formed in the street as Victor stood confidently, ready to claim his victory. Leo stood quietly in the background, watching. "The winner of the best bookstore in the city competition is..." The head judge paused for effect, "Leo's Book Haven." The crowd erupted in cheers, but Victor froze, his face a mix of shock and anger. Victor stormed up to the judges, his voice loud and sharp. "How can that dusty old shop win? My store is bigger, better, and more popular. This is ridiculous." The head judge, calm but firm, responded. "Your store is impressive, Victor, but it lacks soul. Leo's Book Haven offers something uniquer. Personal connection to literature and the community. It's not just a shop, it's a sanctuary for readers." Victor scoffed, shaking his head in disbelief. He turned to Leo. "You think this means anything? It's just a fluke. People don't care about old books anymore." Leo smiled faintly. "Maybe not everyone, Victor, but the ones who do, they're the reason I'm here." As the crowd cheered for Leo, Victor stormed off, humiliated. Meanwhile, people began flooding into Leo's shop, curious to see what made it so special. They browsed the rare books, read the notes Leo had written, and sat in the cozy corners, falling in love with the place. Later that evening, as the celebration died down, Leo sat quietly in his shop, watching the sunset through the dusty window. He felt content, but he also knew that the competition wasn't just about winning. It was about standing up for what he believed in. A week after the competition, the city released an article about the winner. Alongside the headline, a surprising story was revealed. Leo had been anonymously funding local literacy programs for years. Victor, reading the article in his office, was stunned. He had always seen Leo as an old, irrelevant man, but now he realized how wrong he had been. The same judges who had chosen Leo's shop had also known about his quiet generosity, and it had influenced their decision. Later that day, Victor walked into Leo's Book Haven, his usual arrogance replaced by unease. "I read the article," he said, standing awkwardly near the counter. "I didn't know you'd been doing so much for the community." Leo looked up from his book, his face calm. "It wasn't for recognition, Victor. It was for the people who need it." Victor hesitated before speaking again. "Maybe Maybe I've been going about this the wrong way. Leo smiled faintly. It's never too late to change. As Victor left, Leo returned to his book, the shop quiet once more. Outside, the little boy he'd given the space book to waved through the window, clutching the book tightly. Leo waved back, a warm feeling filling his chest. In the end, Leo's victory wasn't just about the prize. It was about proving that true success isn't in flashy displays or loud boasts. It's in the quiet, meaningful connections we make and the impact we leave behind.